Welcome to the Bass Thug Podcast. In today's episode we are speaking with prolific punk rock singer-songwriter Eric Daigle. We speak about punk rock, starting a band in a new city, and starting a music scene when the old ones phase out.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for checking out the Bass Thug Podcast. Today, very, very heartwarming special guest, a guy I've known for a while now, since I think at least I was like 15. So I've known you for at least 2 decades, Eric?
Yeah.
My God. Friend of mine, Eric. Can I say your last name?
Yeah.
I saw you. Is it your Facebook last name, or can I use your old last name?
Oh, any name.
Eric Daigle, a.k.a. Eric Neurotic, a.k.a. Eric French, who is a creative workhorse. I don't know how many fucking bands this guy is in. I was able to list Fear of Lipstick, The Livids, Feral Trash, and the Varsity Weirdos. Not to be confused with the MMA fighter, Eric Daigle. I discovered there's a MMA fighter with your name.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. Thank you for coming on the podcast, sir.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So was that a good intro? Was that good? Did I rattle off your stuff?
Oh, yeah, no, for sure. I thought, I was like, holy shit, Will's so professional sounding.
Okay, yeah. Well, I got all your demos and stuff over the years. I mean, I have it. So I'm going to start off by asking you a couple of stupid questions, but I think you'll give pretty good answers to them. The first question is, what is punk rock?
Oh, Jesus. I don't know. 2 4-letter words.
Okay.
I don't know. I feel like I might be too old to answer that question now.
Oh, really?
Well, I don't know. I think it stops when you hit about 20.
Why do you say that?
Oh, I don't know, because, I don't know, because anything after that's just kind of like, forced, I feel, maybe, or a lie, It's like trying really hard to be something, and that's kind of not punk rock, right?
Yeah. Do you think it's because being older is less dangerous than being younger, and like punk rock was like it's like a very dangerous vessel for ideology,
I guess I just don't care anymore.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, like, people would file my records under, they would, under the punk section, because they gotta put, things in a box somewhere.
Yeah.
But I mean, other than that, I mean, I don't know. I'd say the left, the millennials, like trans kids.
Okay.
Trans kids punk as fuck.
Okay.
They're the ones out there fighting the fight against the man, and everyone's telling them not to be that way, but they're saying, fuck it, I am this way.
Trans or trans? Like transgender, you mean?
Yeah, transgender.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought you said trance. I was like, what the? Trance? It was 1997?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think it changed, but it still is used as a way of like radical expression, And I think maybe when you had like New York hardcore and stuff, it was like sort of rebelling against, Reagan era kind of conservatism and like that sort of like suburban family kind of thing, But now it wasn't against the family, but it was just rebelling against the bullshit, 9 to 5 and all that grind, But now you have all these different sort of things that people are exploring, like you're saying, like with the like transgendered rights and stuff, and just having that accepted as a norm. And
it just seems like all these, it's like all these punks, these so-called punks, they're like the old men now. They're like, like yelling, like, get off my lawn, like, all these punks get upset because people call out old punks, like, and that guy from the Dickies there gotten shit because he was yelling all this awful stuff at this young girl in a crowd, and then everyone's just like, oh, but that's punk, and it's like, I don't think punk's supposed to be about ripping on people who, you know, have a harder time, or like, you know, like the less fortunate or the disenfranchised, like, you know?
Yeah. Well, yeah, punk was a working class movement from a bunch of British, you wouldn't even call them musicians, you know, Sex Pistols, The Clash, right? That was working class music, you know?
For sure. No, I think it changes. I think punk changes every few years. I don't think it dies. I think it just, maybe a version of it dies, but it just keeps reforming itself in some new thing. Like, you know?
Yeah, it's better than the late 90s where it was just to sell fucking Vans and skate shoes. That's all punk was, selling skateboards and fucking sneakers, you know? And at least now it's, maybe if you don't agree with the politics behind it or whatever, but at least it's doing something that isn't so fucking goddamn commercial. Punk for a while turned into what it was rebelling against, right?
Oh yeah, well I think that's, you know, I think most things you inevitably become what you hate.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, it's like that tired old cliche, like, you know, like, oh, you know, you become your parents, and like,
yeah,
you know, it's a you know, it's a thing, I guess. I just you know, I don't know. I just, you know, I don't know why people I don't know why people think it's like, you know, like, oh, like, you know, like going out of your way to like, you know, offend people because it's punk. It's like that band. I don't know if you ever heard that band that was going around there, Black Pussy.
No.
All right, well, that's like these bunch of white guys, and they played in this rock and roll band called Black Pussy, and you know, a bunch of, you know, women of color were like, you know, like what the, you know, upset about it, like what's the deal, and like everybody's, you know, these guys' response were like, oh, it's rock and roll, it's supposed to be offensive. It's like, nah, you're supposed to offend fucking, you know, Reagan, not fucking Rosa Parks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
that's a good sample right there. Yeah, I totally agree. And it's like, I don't know if it's, I don't know. I think this is the most political episode I've had so far. But you know, I just recorded an interview with a guy on Monday, and we had sort of a similar conversation about chiptune. And there's a lot of trans people in the chiptune community, and there was some drama on some of their famous message boards because of just people saying like, you know, slurs and stuff. And I don't know. It's like, it's whether you agree with the politics or not. Like, you got to be fucking happy that it's not co-opted by fucking Starbucks anymore, you know, or like Activision with like Tony Hawk, and you know, punk is actually, it stands for something again, whereas, you know, for up until 2006 it was just fucking to sell crap, you know. You'd hear Iggy Pop in car commercials, you know.
Yeah, I suppose, but I don't know. I just think people in general, I think it's just, you know, people just like, you know, selling crap. I mean, I think, you know, people, I think they're still selling, I think they're out there, the world's out there still selling punk to whoever will buy it. Yeah. It's just, maybe now we're not shocked by it anymore. And because we see it all the time, we think it doesn't happen as much as it did happen back then. But I mean, it's still going. Like, I mean, like, you got your Hot Topics and all that shit. And yeah. Goth is like the thing now, you know?
Yeah, because of Skrillex, huh?
Yeah. Well, it's like, you know, and I fucking dread the day when ska becomes a thing again.
Oh, it'll become a thing.
Oh, yeah. It's coming back around, baby.
Yeah. Why do you think there's like such like a young versus old in the punk community?
Well, I think, you know, I think there always was, like, you know, because I mean, even like if I think about like, you know, when we were young, right?
Yeah.
Like, if we saw a guy, you know, we're punks, right? And if we saw a guy, you know, walking around with like a Swazi on him,
yeah,
we'd be, you know, that guy's the fucking enemy.
Yeah.
But, you know, 10, 15 years before we were, you know, punks, the punks back then, that's what they would do. Like, yeah. You know, you got Sid Vicious and all that shit. Like, yeah. You know, all kinds of punks wore Swazis.
Yeah.
So when we came around, the old punks were probably like, you know, like, oh, it's supposed to be like, you know, shocking and offensive. And, you know, we were like, well, it's fucked up and you should fucking stop doing it.
Yeah.
And we called them out on their shit. But now we're the old punks, and the young punks are calling us out on our bullshit. And it's like there's a line in the sand, and it just seems like, you know, I'm generally going to go with the youth myself because, frankly, I think, you know, they're the change. They're the new punks.
Yeah.
So it's not punk to argue with fucking 18-year-old punks, you know?
I agree.
It's to be, you know, in your 30s telling these 16-year-old, 18-year-olds, like, what are you rebelling against? You know? It's like, holy shit. Like, you know?
Telling 16-year-olds how to have sex.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, it's kind of, it's kind of fucked up. I guess we are a little old now, you know. We're a little long.
Well, I mean, I definitely got some years on you, but I mean, I'm in high 30s, so I don't consider myself a young punk anymore.
Yeah. So you think it just like evolves, and you're down with like the evolution of it? That's cool, man.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to be that old man on his lawn yelling at the kids who thinks he knows better, you know?
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I'll still tell them, you know, stay in school and don't drink and drive. Like, you know, there's some staples that I'll pass along, but otherwise I'm more interested in, you know, they seem to have a better understanding. Like, I don't know, earlier you were talking about, was chiptune?
Yeah.
I have no idea what that is.
Oh, it's like guys that make music on Game Boys.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
See, I got to get in on that.
Yeah.
You used to do that.
I know.
Music.
Yes, I know. So they're, I think you see it in a lot of subgenres and a lot of subcultures. You know, I guess I have another question that sort of leads to it. Maybe it's kind of political, but do you think there should be a grace period for people sort of kind of wrapping their head around like new sort of ideologies? I guess this is more like you're talking about the old punks, and I
know that's a fucking loaded question that could blow up in my face, but
okay.
I guess I would say that I like to believe that people can change and people will evolve, because I know there's things I said and things I've done and things I thought 20 years ago that now I look back and I think that's fucked. Like, you know, I grew up like so many other chumps my age. Like when I was 12 years old, if you didn't like something, it was gay.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now it's like I look back and I'm like, holy God, like, why didn't somebody tell me? I didn't realize what I was doing, or, and so, I grew out of it, and I smartened up and, realized how messed up it was, and I think that I want to believe that people can change. It doesn't mean that people shouldn't call out. Like, I mean, I got so many old racist people in my family, like, and it's just like, I say stuff, but I'm, telling like, hey, like, that's not cool, like, if you try to educate them, because mostly it comes from ignorance.
Yeah.
But nobody likes being fucking called out, and if you call out somebody too hard, I think sometimes, and you're really like jamming your finger at them, all you're doing is making that wall bigger.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you got to call people out, otherwise they won't change or evolve. So it's really hard, man. Like, I think you're pretty arrogant if anytime I hear anybody who has like a solid answer, like whether it's on the right side or the left side, like if you really think you've got it all figured out, you're probably an asshole.
Yeah. No, I agree for sure. I find like you're saying, like there's things that, especially like where we grew up, like you were in another part where I was outside of Moncton, man. I was like 30 minutes outside of Moncton where there's dirt roads. It's even more hickish, Yeah. And there's shit that, like, I kind of look back on. I'm like, maybe that was kind of fucked. But like you said, like, no one, it's not even that there wasn't anyone there to show you. It was just like you didn't see the rest of the world, or like,
no, right? You weren't connected. Like the internet, like all these kids, they're so connected to each other, and people now. Like, I didn't have the internet till I was like 22.
Yeah.
You know? Like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So,
okay. Yeah. Okay, I have another stupid question I'm about to ask. Okay, what is pop punk?
oh, Will. I think pop punk is like the term, hardcore punks or crust punks or gutter punks or drunk punks used to like make fun of like, the guys who weren't really punk but thought they were punk, maybe?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I mean, people say it's like, I don't know if it was like Green Day or Blink-182, but I mean, by the time Blink-182 hit the scene, I was too old to be into them anyways, I was like, it's like, oh, these guys are posers, man.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think pop punk is just probably just, kind of like the Ramones or like that kind of Beach Boys pop, pop, but with buzzsaw guitars, I guess.
Yeah. I asked that for the viewers or listeners at home because I think that was a label that you used to associate with, no? Or is that what people branded you as?
I was never comfortable saying it because it's just, I don't know, because it's such a broad spectrum. And it's like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to be thrown in the same fucking arena as, Sum 41 or Blink-182, but it falls under the same, the same arena. Like, I saw, but I mean, you could argue that the Buzzcocks are pop punk, or the Undertones are pop punk, or the Ramones are pop punk.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it all just comes to, like, somebody's, like, personal whatever. I mean, I work in a record store, and sometimes filing records, like bands, into certain sections is hard. Because it's like, do you put the Cure into, like, or Susie and the Banshees, like, do you put them in pop rock or punk or alternative? Like, where do you stick some of these bands, Yeah. And it depends who's working that day.
Yeah.
It's different people will put them in different areas. Like the Pogues. We don't have Pogues in traditional Irish music section. We put the Pogues in the punk section, which is fucked. Because, they're an traditional Irish band. Anyways.
Yeah. So, would you say Ramones are punk, or would you say Ramones are pop punk?
I think it's the same. I don't think the two are mutually exclusive. I would, if somebody said the Ramones were a pop punk band, I wouldn't correct them. Mm-hmm. And if somebody said that they were a punk band, a punk rock band, I probably wouldn't correct them either.
Yeah.
Maybe I would have 20 years ago when I was 17 and I knew everything.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the Moncton punk history. Is that something you want to get into?
Let's do it.
All right. Can you give me the rundown on the last 3 decades of Moncton punk?
Oh, jeez. 3 decades?
Yes, sir.
Oh, my God.
Let's start with the 90s. Let's just start with the 90s.
All right. From where I was sitting?
Yeah.
Okay.
When you were working at Room 201, or whatever Room 201 turned into, it was Blast Off. Yeah. Let's start from Blast Off and up.
All right, Blast Off and up. All right, well, I would say that the heavy hitters at the time were probably, there's Hope and Sour Grapes were two of, like, the bigger ones that I knew of. Purple Night was still doing its thing.
Yeah.
And I think Earth AD was still kicking, and they were like, I think they started like early 90s, maybe late 80s. I don't know my Earth AD history. I'm sure Ray 13's ears are burning somewhere.
Yeah.
He's like, you should know this, Eric.
Yeah.
It's Moncton history. But yeah, I don't know. I would say that, like, skate punk was was kind of the big thing. But there was a few bands that showed up that weren't doing that. Like, Bad Luck was still going. Like, they were the big one, I guess, at that point. But I mean, like, they were they're kind of slowing down late 90s. I think they were more of like an early 90s thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, there was like a serious dip there for a while, I guess, because like after, Eric's Trip and the Monoxides had like a lot of success, after that, I think there was just a bit of a slowdown because there wasn't places for all ages shows. There's very few all ages shows, and so there weren't like new bands coming up except for Hope and Sour Grapes were there, but then after them was me and you.
Do you think it was because in the 90s it was like more focused on sort of like indie? Like, I wouldn't say Eric's Trip is punk or the Monoxides, great bands, but I wouldn't say they were like punk, No,
I suppose not. I mean, once again, I guess it's who you ask. I mean,
yeah.
It's pretty subjective. I mean, Monoxide, sure, yeah, they're a rock band. Like, you're right. Let's not pussyfoot around that.
Yeah. So do you think there was like a Moncton music scene where like sort of one genre kind of died off and there wasn't really?
I don't think so. Like, I think there wasn't enough bands. Like, you know what I mean? Like, at the time, like, we were the only, I guess, pop punk bands that was going, I would say. Like, when Livid / Fear of Lipstick started, like, nobody was doing that kind of pop, that 90s pop punk thing, like that Ramones Screeching Weasel worship type stuff in the city. 10 years later, like, almost every band in the city was like that. Yeah. But yeah, and and we would play with the Dead Fucks a lot and stuff, and Hope, and none of those three bands are anything like each other. Like, you know what I mean? It was like you had a fucking, it'd be like Sex Pistols and No Effects, Bad Religion, and like fucking Undertones. Like, they were all very different bands, very different ideals and styles and stuff. But I think Moncton was just small, so all these different styles of bands would play together because we didn't want to play with the indie bands or the jazz bands or the hippie bands.
Yeah, obviously. It's no secret. I look back at those years very fondly, and I always think it's like a really good like edge case to like kind of analyze, because there was a dip, there was nothing happening, and then a bunch of people wanted to make something happen. And not only did the people who were producing the stuff made something happen, there was like an audience. There was like hundreds and hundreds of people that were like supporting it in a small town. Pre-internet era, pre-fucking Facebook, pre-Facebook ads, and sorry?
I said gig sheets.
Yeah, exactly.
They were a thing.
Yeah, and it's kind of like, you looked at now, there's kind of like a slouch in music and stuff, but, there was always these slouches in music, and they always recovered at some point, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I'm just kind of always curious, like, how... Like, what happened? Why did the stars align to, like, make our thing happen, Because it was insane for the people listening that don't know. You'd go out to Navigators, and there'd be, like, fucking 300 people in this bar. There'd be so many people in the bar, the fucking fire extinguisher would, like, start going out or whatever, right?
Yeah. No, you're right.
It was
a very golden age.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it was... I don't know. I don't know why the stars aligned, because it hasn't been, nothing going on like for that. Not long after that, I remember like indie pop night was a thing.
Yeah.
Remember that, like DJ Bones there, and like that's where everybody would go, and you'd be like, why? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Because,
I think.
Oh, sorry.
No, go.
Oh, well, I think because the thing that's really cool about it is that, like, the sort of cultural impact of it all, you know, not to sound all like, you know, highfalutin or anything, but it's like when I visit Moncton, you know, there's young kids who are punks, you know, there's a lot of people that, you know, have tattoos. There's like, it's weird that maybe I shouldn't be taking a collective, like, you know, what's the word, credit for this, but like it seems like we influenced like generations of young people that went on to kind of live and have a certain like ideology and lifestyle after us. Do you agree with that? Or
I mean, you know, I think people, you know, you know, no different than us, I guess. Like, you know, I named Fear of Lipstick was named after a Bad Luck Number 13 song, you know? Yeah. And like I thought those those guys were everything. Like I thought those guys were like the coolest. I wanted to be like those guys. Yeah. And that's who I went to go see when I would, you know, see in bands. And then eventually, you know, we become the bands, and these young kids, they hear about us, they, you know, see our names, they see our shows, they buy our demos, whatever. Yeah. And and then they start bands. Like lots of kids who used to come see me play are now part of the scene and playing bands with me.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I think that's it. Like you go out and, you know. Yeah, I think.
Or when they become more popular than you, that's like always the fucked up one.
Oh well, I mean that's, you know, that's what you want though.
Yeah, of course, yeah. You know,
obviously,
what I mean? Yeah.
Like it's like, you know, it's like the ninjas. It's like, you know, you gotta surpass Sensei to make them happy. You know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You said that it never was the same, but I thought it was still pretty popular after, like in the last 10 years with like Clothes House and stuff, and I guess there was like a lot of action going on in Halifax.
I suppose, but it wasn't like it wasn't, you know, 300 people like, you know, filling the place. Like it wasn't like, you know, like I remember like going to the Paramount in you know, the early 2000s, and holy fuck, we were getting paid too. Like, yeah. You know what I mean? Like they'd be like, 220 people paid at the door, and you're just like, holy shit, like we got some money. Now it's like if like 75 people pay at the door, I'm like, holy shit, like I've made it. Like, you know what I mean? I get so excited. And it's like that when I go to other shows. You know, unless, you know, of course, like, you know, if like Stiff Little Fingers comes to town, then like a bunch of, you know, the old crowd will come in, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking of the golden, you know, I'm thinking of back then more fondly than it actually was. Who knows?
Did you find that the Ottawa scene was different than the Moncton scene, or was there a big scene in Ottawa?
Yeah, but it was really, I mean, in Ottawa, like they have like, you know, the Ottawa Explosion was like a big kind of scene that I was really into, and that was always huge, and like lots of different kind of subgenre and cliques would kind of come together.
Yeah.
But there is definitely like more pockets, like more bands that kind of sound together, like, you know, from different parts of the city. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
As for Moncton, it was like just like a fucking mishmash to be like, oh, you know that guy Tony? Yeah, well, Tony started a band with Jimmy, and we're gonna play a show together. It's like you didn't know anything about them. You know what I mean? Like you just heard like, oh, like, you know, they like the Clash, and it's just like, oh, cool. Well, then we must play with them. You know?
Yeah. Did you find that the DIY ethic of punk is like still strong, or do you think it's like more sort of cut and paste and not as DIY as it was?
No, I think it is. I don't think that's changed much. I think people are better at it now too. I think back, like, you know, I'm always super impressed with like, you know, the younger crew these days. Like, you know, I felt like when we were doing it, like we were kind of like, oh, we didn't really know what we were doing. Yeah. I mean, we booked shows and we would make flyers. And
dude, when I recorded your demos with one fucking shitty microphone that was rusty.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
I feel like they've gotten better, but DIY, I mean, like, you know, they have shit like, man, like, was it GarageBand on my phone? That thing's fucking amazing. Changed my life.
Really?
Oh, fuck yeah. Because you can just bang out, I mean, I'm not recording albums on it, but it's just like, you can, you know, just like record all these, you know, little bits over each other, like, oh, is this solo gonna work on this chord pattern?
Wow.
So yeah, you really, it just upped everyone's game. Like, bands have gotten better.
How do you do that? I didn't even know GarageBand was on a phone.
Yeah, I've got it on my iPhone.
So what do you have to plug a sound card into it, or you just use the microphone on the phone?
I just use the microphone on the phone.
Oh my god, that's fucking cool.
Yeah, so I record one track and then I add an extra track, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to put this weird little underwater effect. You know? So like, and then I'll play my little lead, and I'll put a third one and vocals, and I mean, you know, it's nothing. I'm so bad with it. I would never release anything.
You should though. You should do like a side project where it's just all GarageBand on your iPhone.
I suppose I could.
That's $9 you get from me.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I think kids are smarter, and they're better, and they're more organized to do the DIY thing than we were.
Yeah. But it's just so natural that the youth are always. It's not that they're smarter or something. It's just that they haven't been so domesticated. You know, as you get older, just life is just so fucking soul crushing that you just end up submitting. Like Rick Martel's giving you the Boston Crab, and you're just like tapping out. You're like, whatever. I'll cut my hair and I'll go to work. You know. But when you're 15, 16, you have all this leisure and freedom to be whatever the fuck you want and do whatever the fuck you want to do. So it's just this unfiltered, raw reflection of life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you don't have to like get all your information from the people directly around you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you know, there's like, fuck, like there's just so many, you know, like all the kids looked the same when we were younger.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like everybody looked the fucking same. Now it's like, holy shit, yeah, I'm sure if you looked at like a class photo, it'd be like just all these crazy looks and different types of people, like their styles and stuff, because they get ideas from all over the planet now, you know?
Yeah.
And not just whatever like was on, you know, the Wedge that week.
Yeah, oh my god. Call back to the Wedge. Shout out to Sookin Lee.
Oh!
Yeah. No, I agree, man. Like, I know things started changing for me around 2003. That's when I started hanging out with, like, on, like, online message boards and stuff, and, like, talking to dudes in other countries, and they were like, you know, I was like, oh, fuck, like, I didn't know the rest of the world was like this, you know? I was just kind of doing what everyone else is telling me to do, you know? And now I think there's still a little bit of that. I think people kind of don't want that freedom, but for the most part, if you're like a rebellious kid, if you're like an Eric Daigle in 2019, you're able to, you know, have your own individuality a lot easier, right?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So you moved from Moncton to Ottawa. How did that affect your music career?
I think good. I mean, I went there, and you know, I mean, I was just doing Feral Lipstick was done, and we just finished making the Feral Trash record, and I just moved to Ottawa, so I'd already moved to Ottawa when it actually came out. Yeah. So you know, that was kind of like a bit of a bummer there, but in Ottawa, like I started two bands, Cheap Wine and Chiller, and made a record with people from Ottawa for both of them. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it was good. I was there 3 years, put out 2 albums, and played a bunch of shows with some great bands and stuff. Bands I was super into. Like it was a great 3 years.
That's awesome.
I mean, I went there originally because my wife, my partner, Alicia, was doing some schooling, and so I was just like, all right, well, let's go for some change.
Yeah.
and it was good. And she finished, and I was like, hey, you want to go back to the hub?
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, well, let's go back. And me and her, we're still doing the chiller thing now. We got a new lineup, but yeah. So it was definitely a good 3 years. I also feel like being in a getting out of Moncton also progressed me in a short time quicker than I would have progressed here, because people there it's more cultured city.
People are just different everywhere, and it's like there's people from Ottawa that probably went to Moncton for 3 years and they were like, oh, I'm so happy I left Ottawa for 3 years. I learned a lot, I think it's just the change of the scenery, And Ottawa, man, people are like, Ottawa's boring. I fucking, that's where most of my functional alcoholism was like born, in Ottawa. I partied hard when I was in Ottawa. That place is awesome. I really love Ottawa.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, it's like a perfect mixture of like a big city and it's like Fredericton mixed with like Montreal,
Yeah.
So what was it like starting all over again as a musician in like a totally different town? Did you put like classifieds up or ads or?
Actually, I was lucky because it was pretty easy for me because we played there so many times, like, Fear of Lipstick and Feral Trash and Varsity Weirdos. Like, I have so many friends there that it was much easier for me to start a new band in Ottawa than it is for me to start a band here in Moncton, because it's like in Ottawa there's so many players.
Yeah.
Like, I could be like, oh, I'm going to ask this guy and this girl and this person, and it was like easy. Here it's just like, okay, well, we could ask, Timmy, but Timmy's already drumming for 4 other bands. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it wasn't super hard in Moncton, I guess, when we got back, because it was like, God, I hate saying it, but it's like, got clout, a little bit of clout, like, you're like, oh, Eric gets records out. Like,
yeah.
I want to be on a record, maybe I'll play with Eric.
Oh my God. Having that fucking vinyl. I remember when my record came out, it was so weird. Like, people were like giving me headlining positions and shit. And I kind of hated it because it was like, I was like, well, do you even give a fuck about my music, or do you just give a fuck that someone invested $2,000 in it,
Yeah.
Do you ever feel that way? Do you ever feel like maybe, do you resent that clout sometimes?
No, I don't think I do, because I feel like, I don't know, like, I've been fucking doing this for 20 years, man. Like,
you earned it.
I've earned it. Like, I try really hard. I put a lot of time and money and, just my brain, like, but it's, even if I didn't, like, I would still do it. Like, it's my own, like, I probably should be going to see, like, getting psychiatric help, talking to somebody, but I can't afford that. It's much cheaper to try to
go on podcasts.
Yeah, or belt out my songs, write songs. It's like kind of like it's just a need, a therapy. I know that sounds fucking cliche.
No, my therapist told me that.
But it is. I mean, it's like my parents don't understand. Like, oh, you're still doing that. Like, I played a university. I played Sackville like a month ago at this little bar, and at the end of our set, this fresh-faced 18, 19-year-old young fella comes up to me wearing a band, my band T-shirt that he just bought, and he says, he goes, "Oh man, it's so cool that you're still rocking." And I was just like because as if I'm fucking old.
Yeah.
And it's like, just keep rocking, man. Just keep rocking. I was like, okay, Junior, thanks for buying a shirt. Like, yeah.
It's, I read this book about therapy, and at the end, anyways, this guy goes and he sees like 30 therapists, and it was a funny book, and I was like, I'll go see a therapist for shits and giggles. My work covers like up to 2 visits. And I went, and they rope you in. Don't go for fun. Like, they'll rope you in. But anyway, she told me, she's like, your music is like a form of therapy. At the time, I was kind of done with music, but she like convinced me to keep making music. So like clinically, you have, like, you're correct about that, I think.
Oh yeah, no, I definitely think that's a thing, because if I don't do stuff, like if I go through hiatuses where I'm not playing or do anything, like, I definitely feel like I'm more prone to panic attacks or like mass depression or just nothing to look forward to,
because it's a music and art in general is just like the best way to express yourself, right? That's how it's always been used, to express yourself, right?
Absolutely.
So do you think live shows are dead?
I don't like doing them as much as I used to. I'm definitely more into making records, like into like recording than live shows. But live shows are definitely, good for the soul. I think, like just to belt out, like. Wait, are we talking about like are they dead in general? Or are they dead for me?
Both.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Sorry, you got me on the therapy wheel, Will.
Yeah.
No, I think people still go to live shows, and I think it's I don't know. I mean, if you're doing something interesting, I guess, or if you're you got your friends, like people complain that people don't. I always see people online on Facebook, like complain like people. Nobody came to my shows or whatever, but it's like these people who don't go to any shows.
Yeah.
Who don't support anybody else.
Yeah.
They don't buy their friend's T-shirt. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I remember when my first record came out. One of the first copies I sold was to you, I was so proud of that first vinyl, and almost none of my other friends bought one. And I was like, bunch of pricks. Like, how many shitty demo tapes have I bought off over the years? And I was like, I finally get a fucking record out, and you can't shell out the $5? Like,
yeah.
Anyway.
Well, it's you have to support that stuff. I think just people don't recognize it. They don't recognize that for things to be successful, you have to fucking support them. If you like a restaurant, you got to eat there. You can't just say you like it, right?
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have gotten, I say that, but I wouldn't have any luck without friends. People were like, oh, how do you get records out? It's like, fuck, man. I was like, it's not because I'm doing anything special. It's because I made friends.
Yeah.
Like, you make friends, and friends help each other,
Yeah. I think there's like a fine line between like networking and like ass kissing, And I think like if you're genuinely interested in like other people's art, and you're generally interested in like the community and the subculture, people will see that, and they'll be like, oh, Eric's a cool guy. Like, I want to help him out. And I know that if I invest any time or whatever in him, I'll get value out of it. Right? Like the record companies that put out your vinyl, they probably knew all about you, right?
Well, I think they knew of other bands. I think getting the first record out is the hardest. Because after the first record came out, then people were making offers to me, like people like labels I'd never heard from, like Germany or whatever. They'd be like, oh, I really like, this Feral Trash and Feral Lipstick. Like, would you ever want to do a thing with my label? And I'd be like, oh, I'd look them up. I'd be like, oh, what's this guy's label? I'm like, oh, he's put out some cool stuff. Okay. Like, but that first record took me fucking like, I don't know, like almost 10 years playing in a band before I had any luck, Yeah.
And I think your drummer recorded that record, right?
He did.
Yeah, so it was like you had to learn like that process. This is pre-YouTube. You couldn't go watch some 14-year-old dickhead tell you how to use Pro Tools, Oh,
no.
You had to learn yourself.
Yeah. Jeremy, our drummer Jeremy, he went to school in Toronto for a year and took a recording class, and while he was gone, I learned how to play guitar, and then he came back and he's like, I know how to record, and I was like, I know how to play guitar now. Let's do this thing.
Eric, where did you learn to sing?
I didn't yet, but
well, I was listening to your Feral Trash album today, and you got some pipes.
Oh, I'm back on. Oh, back off. I just wanted to be in a band, and I couldn't play an instrument. And I think that's what it started. I've just been singing a long time, and I'm certainly not like any professional like teacher singer would be like probably disagree, but I've just been doing it a long time, so I know my limits at this point, and And because I couldn't play an instrument, I was like, I just kept working on the delivery over the years. And I also used to sing through, for about 10 years, I sang through like a PV Bandit.
Okay.
But just like a really small, shitty guitar amp.
Yeah.
Because we didn't have a PA, and no one could afford a PA, but we had this like, it was like, maybe like a 1 8-inch speaker amp, like the smallest amp. And it would always be cranked, and I would have to yell. And so, I just, yelling for 10 years out of a shitty little amp. Your lungs, they expand, I guess.
Yeah.
Now I can belt.
Did you, so I guess at no point did you, like, look into, like, some type of training or, like, lessons or anything like that?
I don't think so, because I've thought about it, but I don't think, I would, it would probably, maybe it would help improve my vocals, but I also know my audience, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, no one that buys my records wants to hear me singing all beautifully. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, I could learn to play guitar like fucking Ingmin Welmstein or whatever that guy's name is.
Yeah.
But no one that buys my records wants to hear me fucking play like that.
Yeah.
So why would I bother,
Yeah. Do you find like I remember I went to this one show and my friend was playing and he sings in a band, and I remember before the show I went to go talk to him and he wouldn't talk to me, and I was like, dude, what's wrong? And he says, I'm saving my voice. And he whispered to me, is that like a problem for you? Do you lose your voice like before you sing? Or no? Okay.
Well, I don't know. It's hard. I'm sure people do. Like, I've seen, like, I've got some friends with some really good voices, and they'll do, like, I've seen them do, like, these little, like, weird vocal exercises in the parking lot before the show, like, and I'm always like, holy fuck, like, you know what I mean? And, hats off to them.
Yeah.
Yes, I think it's more... I think with me, I just try to be more like the feeling. Like, I try to not necessarily like, I'm going to do this, like, great vocal performance. I just, I feel whatever I'm feeling when I'm singing that song, and it's just like, I don't want it to be, like, fake and rehearsed. Like, I want it to, like, this is it. This is... this is... all right, back to question 1. What is punk? I think it's honesty, okay? Yeah. And that's what I try to do, is I just try to be fucking honest, I guess. So, I don't know, it just seems weird to me, all these things, like, people are like, doing your finger exercises and stuff, and I guess I probably should be.
Yeah.
When I'm playing guitar, too, but I don't.
Yeah.
It's not that important to me, I guess, to play perfectly or sing perfectly. Like, I think that's just it's not the end all be all of putting on a good performance.
Yeah. Because when you're writing, some of your songs are like pretty, like, you're listening to it and you're like going like, okay, this must be coming from somewhere, Like, is it hard to, like, kind of channel, like, that kind of emotion when you play live, like, for a song that you wrote, like, 2 or 3 years ago, or, like, or do you...
Sometimes, yeah, definitely, the older songs, and that's, that's why I keep writing new songs, like, it's hard, because people want to hear the old songs.
Yeah.
But I know it's going to sound fucking pompous, I'm not really doing it for them anyways, I'm doing it for me, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's awesome if they enjoy it, and that makes me feel good, and that makes me feel better about myself, but I'll always want to do the new song, like, oh shit, like, we got a new song, it's fresh, it's been written, I can't wait to play it. Like, I want to play the new stuff. Like, I don't want to go like, I want to play fucking, Lonely Heart, like, oh my god, like, that was like, that was like my... that Fear of Lipstick song was like the big Fear of Lipstick song for like a decade. Yeah. And let me tell you, I'm so stoked I never have to play it again. Like, I don't know how the Ramones played fucking Blitzkrieg Bop, 2,500 fucking times or however many times it was.
Yeah. What is the best thing about the Ramones? Why do you think the Ramones worked?
I think it's like they always say in those documentaries, because like you realize like, you know, these were good songs and they're so simple that, you know, I could write them.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not, now of course, you know, those people would be kind of wrong, because none of these other jokers are writing songs as good as Dee Dee or whatever.
Yeah.
But, you know, it wasn't so out of, like, you know, I don't have to spend fucking 10 years of my life being able to write this song. Like, if you were like, you know, say like, I don't know, fucking, you know, some of these other bands are like, well, that Ingham Malmsteen, whatever the fuck, you know what I mean? Like, anybody can do it. Like, you know, it's like, you know, these bands, they just pop up and they're just like, oh, we've never played an instrument before, and, you know, now I'm just gonna do it, and it's simple and it's easy, and it's like you can make a song, you know, and it's cool. I think that's why the Ramones were. I mean, you know, they looked cool. They had the image, the leather jacket, and the whole, you know, sniffing glue, and you know, all that fun stuff. But I think that's what attracted a lot of people to them. It's like they were awesome, but they weren't super showboat. Like, they didn't seem pompous. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think they were pretty honest.
Yeah. You're talking about their image. Do you think all bands need to have an image, or do you think any band that doesn't have an image won't be successful? Or
it depends. Like I don't know. Like, I mean, I love a good band photo. You know what I mean? Yeah. You know, I love when I see, like, you know, like that first Clash album. Like, you know, or like, you know, you're like, oh shit, like these guys look fucking cool. And so that might attract you to somebody. You think like, oh, like, you know, I kind of like the looks of these guys, but it doesn't mean everything. Like, I don't know. You ever heard, you know, that, like, that guy or that band Soft Moon? You ever heard of them?
No.
Okay, well, I don't know. Like, it's just kind of like weird industrial gothic type stuff. You just check them out. You might like them.
Okay.
Anyways, there's like almost like there's like no album covers on some of the things. Like, it's just the most plain, basic thing. I don't know what the guy looks like. Like, I don't know anything about this image, but the music, you know, like, super rules. So I guess it's not super important, but it definitely helps, you know?
Yeah. Huh. Yeah, that's a tough one, like, because especially when you're doing punk, like, you want to keep an authenticity, but then, you know, you also have to, you know, sell yourself as, like, a punk.
Oh,
right?
sure.
Yeah.
I know. Well, I mean, look at that fucking, that shit band there, the Casualties. Like, holy God, man. Those guys are, like, millionaires off of, like, band
Mohawk.
and mohawks, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And people fucking love them. And it can't be because their fucking tunes are good, because they ain't. Like, you know, I'll tell you, that's a terrible band. But people love the image, you know what I mean? And so, you know, so it worked for them.
Yeah. Eric, how much have you toured? I think you toured I don't think I've ever heard of you doing, like, a big tour.
Well, I don't know. I've been down in, you know, I think my longest stretch was, I think, like, something like 12 dates.
Oh, wow. Okay, well, that's a tour. Yeah.
Okay. Like, that wasn't, I was playing guitar in a band from Ottawa, actually, the Steve Adamick band. I was just a rhythm guitar player. Mm-hmm. And, yeah, that was probably the longest. I mean, if it's one of my fronted things, I think 7 or 8 probably.
Wow.
Is the longest one. Like, if it's me fronting it, like, we do, like, you know, we do your Moncton, Halifax, Quebec City, Montreal, Ottawa, Toronto, Sudbury, like, you know, or if we were going down to the States, we usually do, you know, we do the Maine, New Hampshire, we go to down to Baltimore, because we'd go to Baltimore and play, like, this punk fest down there a few times. It was called Insubordination. Okay. But it was like a pop punk fest.
Okay.
But yeah, so yeah, I don't know. other than I've never left the continent. I've just done the States and Canada.
That's some serious touring, man. I didn't know. Did you book it yourself, or how does that work? You called like the venues, or?
Thankfully, when I was in Steve Atomic band, he did it, and it was awesome because it was the only tour. It was the only touring I've ever done or band I've ever been in where I wasn't the one who books everything.
Yeah.
And so it was awesome. But for all my other bands, it's always me. Like I have friends in different cities, and I'm just like, yo, can you get me a show on this date? Can you help me find bands? Can you make me a poster? Like, you know what I mean? Like promoters and stuff. And you just, it's pretty, like, I've got a Quebec City guy. I've got some Sudbury guys. I've got Toronto guys, Ottawa guys, Montreal guys, and that's it's like what punks do. Like, I get contacted all the time by these, when their bands come to town, if their band's coming to Moncton or whatever, it's like, I'm going to make them a gig sheet, and I'm going to find them some bands, and I'm going to give them a place to stay, and, it's there's a real kind of like community kind of thing. And that's probably why I got so close with the people in Ottawa, because, we would always put up all these bands like White Wires or, White Lung or The Creeps or, whoever was coming through town, Sonic Avenues, like it would just be like, oh, they're going to stay at Eric and Alicia's house,
Yeah. Wow, that's awesome. That really sounds like pretty punk rock, actually.
Yeah, no, it is. It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Okay, Eric, I think I took your hour time, but before I wrap it up, I kind of want you to talk about all your bands, because I guess I didn't really ask that in the beginning.
Oh, jeez. Well, there's too many to name, honestly. Chiller's what I got going on right now. We got a record out on a label out of Portland, Oregon, called Dirt Cult. Okay. And it's also on a label out of Germany called Rockstar. And I don't know that there's any copies left out there, but you can find it on Bandcamp. Okay. But I don't know. It's kind of more. It's me and Alicia. Like she was in Feral Trash with me as well. But now she instead of playing drums, she plays guitar and sings, and we kind of trade off vocal duties. And it's kind of like a bit darker themed, gothic kind of, still punk rock, I would say. Mm-hmm. Still some pop elements, but it's more dreary,
More eyeliner.
Yes, exactly. Like more like, Robert Smith records going on.
Well, dude, man, you got his sound. You definitely got his sound. There was a couple of years ago where I was like, shit, I should beg Eric to sing over some stuff.
Fuck, anytime.
Oh my God! You imagine? Is now the time to do it, or are you saying
now is the time to do it?
Oh God, yeah. I liked. I think Feral Trash is probably like I'm nostalgic for the first bands you were in, but I really like that Feral Trash record. I think it's really, really good. It's got that sense of dread that I need when I'm listening to music.
Yeah. No, that's where I'm at these days.
Awesome, cool. So, did you want to give links or anything? Where can people find you?
Oh, jeez. Go to. I guess just the best. we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram. It's Chiller, not to be confused. There's another band from I think they're from Pennsylvania. There's a punk band down there called Chiller, and they confronted us.
Oh wow!
At one point. Like there, and it was like a really aggressive email. It was like,
really?
We've been a band since 2014, and this was in 2015 when they sent it to us.
Wow.
They're like, we already have a demo tape, so you have to change your band's name. And I was just like, I sent them links to like 3 other Chillers. I was like, here, maybe these other Chillers will give a shit about your demo tape. The way I see it is I got on a label and I got a vinyl record out first, I win.
Yeah, I think in a court of law, you actually do win. Just call yourself Chiller Official. They'll piss them off. Just go register Chiller Official on Bandcamp, SoundCloud, everything, and win that battle. Awesome. Well, Eric, it was amazing talking to you again. Man, it's been so long.
Yeah, you too, man.
Yeah, it's good to hear from you, and thank you so much for your time, man. I really appreciate it.
No problem, Will. Take care. Are we cutting out?
Yeah, I'm going to cut out. Did you want to talk or what?
No, I'm going to go out with a cigarette.
All right, cool. I'm going to hang her up. Take care, Eric, and I'll see you next time I'm down.
All right, see you, Will.
I'll see you. Bye. Thank you for listening to the Bass Funk Podcast. Please check us out on social media, on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Add us all there. Leave a comment if you're listening to this on YouTube. If you could just leave a comment, tell us what you like, what you didn't like, thumbs up, thumbs down, whatever. Just communicate with us what's going on. Share it with a friend. And if you would like to be a guest on the podcast, let us know. Hit us up, and we'll work you in, because we just want to promote, cool new music and production. And even if you're like a promoter or you're writing a zine or something, we're just looking for it all. We just want to learn, You could visit the website www.bassfug.com. That's BASSFUG.com, and that's where the blog is. So we aren't doing articles as much anymore. We're just going straight balls to the wall podcasting now. So thank you for checking us out, and add us on social media, and join us next time. Thank you. Bye.